all of their stuff that require, like these gap scheme runs that require movement by your guards, and you have Coleman at one and a healthy Sam Cosmi eventually at the other, holy crap, man. Anthony just asked a couple of good questions, so I wanted to get into those real quick, answer those, because I know there are ones that a lot of other folks are thinking about beyond just Anthony. So the first one is on the false starts that Laremy Tunsil had last year. And here's what I would say. One, I have not studied Tunsil yet, and I haven't watched them to know if there's like something weird was going on consistently where they're trying to go on two and Tunsil forgot, or is he just not, is he having bad games and he's a little jumpy? Like, I don't know what happened. But here's what I would say about false starts on the regular for an offensive lineman, certainly of his caliber, someone who's going to be confident in their play. It's one thing if it's like a guy who's not very good and the guy's trying to get a head start, or he's jumpy and or you're facing Miles. You know, I had 7 false starts all year, and 4 of them were in one game against Myles Garrett. Like, okay, we got it. Their whole offensive system was discombobulated and terrible last year. It's why Bobby Slowick got fired. It's why their offensive line coach got fired. And I would tend to say that while he has been a guy who's picked up false starts and penalties, specifically false starts on the regular, that is something that was magnified by and enhanced by, or you know, whatever the opposite of enhanced is, by the fact that their offense was a mess last year. I feel pretty comfortable saying that. When you're not confident in anything, these are the kinds of things that happen. And hopefully also it's not as big of a problem in a Washington system that tends to go pretty quickly consistently because they get on the ball and they go. They get on the ball and they go. There's not like a whole bunch of waiting around, trying to do hard counts, trying to get the defense to undress itself, you know, with all this whatever. It's like get to the line of scrimmage, use good formation or use formations that give you the information that other teams get with motion or hard counts or whatever, and let Jaden go cook and do his thing. So hopefully that's a situation that's mitigated for Laremy Tunsil. Anthony, your other question was about the offensive line situation, right? In terms of how things go from here.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't we, before we get Anthony, assuming that you have Logan's answer on it, before I give my 2 cents, let's hear what Logan said. Logan joined us yesterday in the 6 o'clock hour in our first ever Take Command live, basically where we just did the podcast on the radio, uninterrupted, commercial free, the whole deal. And so when Logan and I talked about, you know, the Tunsil deal yesterday, we obviously talked about what this means for Brandon Coleman and the rest of the line. And here is what Logan had to say.
This was the thing that I kept coming back to as the big offseason narrative issue is how do you get better on the offensive line? You need to upgrade, in my opinion, the left tackle spot. That's not an indictment of Brandon Coleman. I just think he was playing out of position a little bit, right? Now it gives you some flexibility. You got your cornerstone left tackle there. You got a great center. When Cosby's healthy, you got a right guard. 3 of the 5 pieces are exactly where you need them to be, and then you can kind of mix and match as needed with the other pieces you got. So to me, this is an essential move. This has to happen. I'm so glad it did happen because it raises the floor of the offense. Look no further than the Super Bowl. I know we tend to have like this immediate knee-jerk reaction to seeing people like in the Super Bowl specifically, oh my gosh, the offensive line's terrible, whatever. But that's with a young quarterback, with a guy that's going to change this organization's trajectory. You need to protect him. You need to keep him upright because when he's upright, he's a dangerous football player.
So that's where we sit on more Logan things, where Brandon Coleman kicks over to guard, Wiley still plays right tackle, and Tunsil plays left tackle. And Anthony, I think that's the right play. I just think that moving Brandon Coleman to right tackle, like, I don't know if he has a chance to be great at tackle. I think he has a chance to be great at guard, which is kind of the calculation that the last regime made with Cosmi. Could Sam Cosmi have had a perfectly fine career as a pretty good right tackle in the NFL? Yeah, for sure. And frankly, like Brandon Sheriff, maybe he would have even been better. Maybe Brandon Sheriff could have been a Pro Bowl level right tackle. But he was an all-pro guard. Like, if he had been able to maintain the level that he played at here when he got to Jacksonville, like that's a guy that would be like burgeoning on Hall of Fame level. He didn't sustain it for long enough. He was great as a guard. And I think that Coleman's athleticism, his size, his bulk, some of the ways that he struggles are kind of in space. So you take him out of space, and now what can he do? like one of the things he really struggled with, and I remember talking to Logan about this a ton last year because this will stun people. I am not an offensive line expert. I know, look at me. How could you not think that I am not an offensive line expert? But Logan is. Like, Logan played wide tight end in the NFL, where he's basically a sixth offensive lineman in a lot of cases, and he coaches offensive linemen, in terms of skills training and all that kind of stuff. He knows pass protection. He knows that stuff really, really well. And as a tight end, his personal playing experience in the league was much more similar to a tackle. So he fundamentally understands the concept that I'm about to talk about. But he would say, you have a responsibility as a tackle when an edge is coming at you to try to find his midline. So you're trying to be right in the center, and you have to kick step or slide or whatever the technique you're using on that particular snap in a way that puts you in the right position. And sometimes Coleman would overset, sometimes he'd underset. He just really didn't have the consistency of doing that kind of thing in space. At guard, you don't have to deal with that as much. Because guard, you're right on top of each other, set, hut, bang, you bang into each other, and you just block and fight for your life. And Brandon Coleman is a big, strong mamma jamma who can do that. Not to mention, as a puller, he's a super athlete and can get out in space, and I think ups your ceiling compared to a guy like Allegretti, who will fight and maul the best he can, but he's not the athlete that Brandon Coleman is. So if all of a sudden you have Coleman and Cosme at your guards, and you're a team that runs a lot of GG power, like pull, pin pull, regular power, trap, where you have a puller coming across, all of their stuff that require, these gap scheme runs that require movement by your guards, and you have Coleman at one and a healthy Sam Cosme eventually at the other. Holy crap, man. That's a good setup for this team for a long time. Not to mention, hopefully, the stoutness of the middle of that line that can keep Jaden clean. And then you get, Tunsil on one side. And now, if Wiley's not amazing, but if you only need help at one tackle, you can constantly chip. Now maybe instead of even needing chips on both sides, like they did a lot last year, you get chips on one. And you're not going to find a better player, I think, for the price. You could save $10 million by cutting Andrew Wiley, but then you have to replace a right tackle, and I don't know that you're going to find a better right tackle for $10 million than Andrew Wiley. And at that point, you might as well just keep him and keep the continuity of year two in this system where he's on Jaden's front side. Jaden kind of knows how he plays. And Wiley's a pretty darn good run blocker. He might be, struggle in one-on-one pass protection sometimes, but he's a really good athlete. He gets out in space. He plays nasty. He's got an attitude. So there's a lot of stuff that I like about Andrew Wiley, from a value stake that say I'm perfectly fine with him being my fifth best lineman in 2025.
Yeah, and I think the part you added about, just having only to chip one side, I definitely think is going to make life a little bit easier just because you don't have to worry about the left side anymore. Laremy Tunsil's over there, and he's on the blind side. At least, Wiley being on the right side, like Jaden can, work with him,
If you got a chip, there's only so fast that pressure can come. And if Jaden can see it, and if a guy beats a chip, well, it's not going to be instant pressure.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Jaden can then beat that with his feet.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's mega. And how there's even a way to lose that's good and helpful. And Wiley seemed to understand that. I don't have any concrete examples. I'm sure I could go find them on tape. There's not a specific play that comes to mind, but what side did Jaden escape to last year?
He always went right.
He always went right. So even if you're going to lose inside, but you can wash your guy down inside and give Jaden then a clean edge to get out, that's not a bad thing to happen for the Washington Commanders offense.
Yeah.
And Wiley was able to at least do that last year. By the way, speaking of tackles, Cornelius Lucas assigns in, it was Cleveland, right, Anthony, I believe?
Yep.
That's where he wound up.
2 for 10.
Which I know Linnell must be heartbroken because he wanted him to start here or something. Cornelius Lucas, good player, good teammate, good all the things, but good as a backup, swing tackle. He's not as, and the thing is, I think some people thought that he was a young player, and it's oh man, maybe he'll eventually get his spot. Oh, he played well when he did this or that. Cornelius Lucas is 33 years old. And I, as a 35-year-old human being, hate that is old, but there's no upside potential in Cornelius Lucas. paying him a lot of money to be your swing tackle when there's no upside, when you could go draft a guy in the 3rd or 4th round potentially that can be your backup in a pinch this year and also has upside. It can maybe eventually replace Tunsil or replace Wiley next year. I mean, Tunsil, you're hoping is going to be around for like 5 years because tackles can play into their mid-30s. But maybe he's replacing Wiley next year. I think that's a smart way to think about your roster spots and the space you have available. So I have no problem with them letting Cornelius Lucas walk. Not to say that he's not good, but when you think about the finite level of resources, cap space, roster spots, you got to make some choices, and that's one I don't mind. 301-230-0980. We have a couple of folks on hold, including some really good questions that I already see on the call screener. So we will get to those next, but there are also phone lines open. It's a Vibe Check Tuesday, and we're checking in with you on what you think of the Commanders through a day and a half of free agency next.
This is The Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.